Picture this: the height of the Cold War. Tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union had reached their boiling point, and deep within the CIA, a plan was conceived. A plan as brilliant as it was utterly mad. The star of this audacious scheme: an ordinary house cat. Yes, you heard that right. Today, we're going to declassify one of the most bizarre operations in the history of espionage. You'll discover how intelligence agencies attempted to transform our furry friends into cyborg super agents, and what exactly came of it. The 1960s. The CIA and the KGB were locked in a relentless, global battle for information. They needed to know what the enemy was planning, at any cost. Traditional espionage methods, like wiretaps and hidden listening devices, often failed. They were easily discovered, and human agents themselves risked exposure. They needed something entirely new, something that wouldn't raise a single suspicion. And that's when someone's gaze fell upon the most unlikely of subjects: animals, those unassuming creatures that roamed unnoticed everywhere. So the Central Intelligence Agency was staring down a task that seemed almost impossible. Picture Washington, D.C. in the early 60s. The Cold War was in full swing. Every word spoken by a Soviet diplomat or official could hold the key to their intentions. But how do you listen in? Traditional espionage methods were failing. Planting an agent on a nearby park bench? Too risky. They'd be easily compromised. Hiding a stationary bug under a bench or in a trash can? Also a non-starter. Soviet counterintelligence was exceptionally effective. They regularly swept the areas around their embassy with the latest detection technology. Yet, the most candid and crucial conversations often took place outdoors, precisely where people felt safest. The CIA needed a new, revolutionary approach, something that could get up close and personal, yet completely avoid suspicion. It was here, deep within the CIA's headquarters, that a truly outlandish idea took root, one that, at first, might have sounded like a bad joke. What if, they pondered, a living creature could be used as a carrier for a listening device, someone who could roam freely through parks, hide beneath benches, and even brush against people's legs, all without drawing a second glance? A wide array of ideas was floated. Pigeons, for instance. They could carry microcameras, but directing them to a specific target was virtually impossible. Dogs, too loyal to humans, and their need for a handler nearby would instantly raise suspicions. Ultimately, they settled on what they believed was the perfect candidate: a cat. Cats are independent, curious, and masters of discretion. Crucially, people simply pay no mind to a stray cat going about its business. The plan was to transform this seemingly innocent and harmless creature into the ultimate mobile surveillance apparatus, a walking microphone that would autonomously reach its target. So, why a cat, you ask? From a spy's perspective, the answer is both simple and logical. Cats possess a unique set of attributes. Firstly, they are ubiquitous in urban environments. No one bats an eye seeing a cat in a park, a backyard, or even near embassy walls. Secondly, they are masters of stealth and silent movement. A cat can approach a group of people far closer than any human could, without drawing the slightest suspicion. And third, they have their own unique, unpredictable, behavioural shield. If a human loiters aimlessly near an important site, it's suspicious. If a cat does it, it's just a cat. It might lie down for a nap, chase a butterfly, or groom itself, and it will all look perfectly natural. This very naturalness was to be the ultimate cover for a top-secret CIA agent, and so a project was conceived, bearing one of the most charmingly sinister code names in CIA history, Acoustic Kitty. Officially launched in the early 1960s under the auspices of the Office of Science and Technology, its objective sounded like something straight out of a science fiction novel: to create a living cybernetic organism capable of gathering acoustic information in close proximity to a target. Simply put, they intended to turn a cat into a walking bug. The plan was incredibly ambitious. This wasn't merely about strapping a microphone onto a collar. Instead, All components needed to be hidden within the animal, ensuring that upon external inspection, the cat would appear no different from its ordinary counterparts. It posed a monumental challenge to veterinary science, microelectronics, and animal training simultaneously. The stakes were high. The reputation of the office, immense funding, and of course the lives of the furry agents themselves. The goal was ambitious: to turn a cat into a fully controllable surveillance asset, a true bio-cyborg working for the CIA. This wasn't just about implanting a listening device in the animal. The engineers envisioned their spy cat approaching a specific target on command, for instance, a park bench occupied by conversing diplomats. It would then need to remain perfectly still throughout the entire conversation, ensuring the microphone captured every word with clarity. And, perhaps the most daunting task, after completing its mission, it had to return to the agents autonomously. In essence, the cat was required to exhibit behaviour completely uncharacteristic of its species: unwavering obedience to commands, a total disregard for its instincts, and the ability to operate in a stressful, urban environment. This was far more than mere training. It was an audacious attempt to bypass and fundamentally reprogram the animal's very nature. To achieve this ambitious objective, a complete espionage kit needed to be surgically embedded within the animal. First, there was a miniature microphone, engineered to capture human speech from a suitable range. Second, a radio transmitter would send the recorded audio to a receiving device held by agents positioned nearby, perhaps in a discreet surveillance van. Third, a compact power source, a battery robust enough to operate the entire system for the duration of the mission. Finally, an antenna was essential for stable signal transmission. Each of these individual components represented a triumph of microelectronics for its era. However, simply assembling them was one thing. Actually implanting the entire setup into a living, mobile creature, without causing it harm or altering its natural behaviour, proved to be an extraordinary challenge, a task entrusted to a dedicated team of top veterinarians and surgeons. The project had entered its most complex, and frankly, its most disturbing phase, the surgical procedure. Specially commissioned veterinary surgeons were tasked with an operation that lasted approximately 1 hour. It was incredibly delicate, precision work. The challenge was to implant electronic components without hindering the cat's natural movement or causing any pain or discomfort. Any unnatural behaviour, such as the cat constantly scratching the implant site, could have jeopardized the entire mission. Beyond its technical complexity, the operation also raised significant ethical questions. In essence, researchers were transforming a living creature into a vessel for electronics, fundamentally altering its natural physiology. It was a true Frankenstein of the espionage world, with an unsuspecting, furry pet cast in the role of the unwitting monster. Engineers meticulously planned the placement of every single component. The microphone, crucial for gathering intelligence, was strategically placed within the cat's ear canal. This made perfect sense. The animal's ears are natural sound channels, and this location ensured maximum recording clarity. The radio transmitter, a tiny, coin-sized device, was implanted at the base of the skull for maximum protection. This was the very heart of the surveillance system, responsible for transmitting invaluable intelligence. Every step of the operation demanded the utmost skill, as even the slightest error could not only destroy the expensive equipment, but also cost the animal its life. Tragically, not all cats involved in these experiments survived the intricate procedures. The antenna posed a unique challenge for the engineers. It had to be long enough for reliable signal transmission, yet completely invisible. Concealing a metal rod within the cat's body was simply out of the question. They came up with a solution that was both ingenious and remarkably simple. A hair-thin antenna wire was meticulously woven into the animal's fur. It stretched from the base of the skull, where the transmitter was housed, along the entire spine, all the way to the very tip of its tail. Even upon close inspection, let alone a casual glance, this thread was virtually impossible to spot. It blended perfectly into the animal's dense fur. In this way, the entire cat's tail, which the animal so gracefully swished, was transformed into a powerful transmitting antenna. While an elegant technological solution, it did nothing to resolve other, far more serious problems. However, the power source, the battery, presented the biggest technical hurdle. In the 1960s, batteries were bulky and low capacity. Finding one that was both small enough for implantation and powerful enough to run the transmitter for an extended period proved to be an impossible task. Engineers were forced to compromise. They used the most miniature power source they could find, but it only lasted for a very short time. This imposed severe limitations on the entire operation. The spy cat couldn't track a target for hours or patiently wait for the opportune moment. The entire mission, from deploying the agent to receiving the data, had to be completed in a matter of mere minutes. This transformed an already risky plan into a desperate long shot where everything hinged on chance and sheer luck. It was implanted just under the skin in the cat's abdominal area, where it would be least noticeable and wouldn't impede its movement. Even this solution, however, was far from ideal. The device's limited operational lifespan meant operators had no room for error. If the cat became distracted, spooked, or simply decided to go the wrong way, precious minutes and battery life would be squandered. A second attempt was rarely an option. At its core, this entire elaborate and expensive technological setup, comprising a microphone, transmitter, and antenna, was entirely dependent on a tiny, underpowered battery, rendering the entire system inherently unreliable and critically vulnerable. This proved to be the Achilles heel of the entire Acoustic Kitty project. But getting all the necessary equipment implanted was only half the battle, perhaps even less. Now CIA agents faced their most unpredictable challenge yet, teaching a cat to spy. They needed to get an animal renowned for its independence and stubbornness to precisely follow commands. This was uncharted territory for any animal trainer. Teaching a cat to use a litter box or avoid scratching furniture is one thing. Transforming it into a disciplined intelligence operative is an entirely different challenge. The engineers and veterinarians had successfully completed their part of the mission. Now the success of the project hinged entirely on the psychologists and animal behavior specialists. And it was precisely at this stage that Project Acoustic Kitty encountered its ultimate, insurmountable obstacle, the very nature of the cat. But this is where the real, insurmountable challenges truly began. After all, as everyone well knows, cats famously march to the beat of their own drum. Unlike dogs, they simply don't possess that inherent drive to serve humans. Their motivation stems from instinct, curiosity, and their own fleeting desires. CIA trainers employed every known method. They attempted to condition the cats using sound cues, light signals, and of course treats. But it all proved futile. An agent cat might flawlessly execute commands in the sterile confines of the laboratory, but the instant it was brought outdoors, the entire world instantly became far more captivating than any given orders. A rustle of leaves, a bird flying past, or the enticing aroma from a nearby diner would instantly pull its attention away from the secret mission. The trainers attempted to teach the cat to approach specific individuals and casually settle down nearby, making it look like a complete coincidence. They spent hours repeating the same drills. Occasionally, it seemed they were making headway. The cat would indeed approach the mannequins designated as targets, but then something would inevitably go awry. Suddenly, in the middle of a critical drill, the furry agent might simply plop down and begin meticulously grooming a paw, completely ignoring every command. Or even worse, a sudden loud noise might send it scrambling off in an unknown direction. CIA specialists, in their reports, would frustratingly note the cat's utter lack of loyalty and inability to maintain focus on any given task for extended periods. They had effectively run headfirst into a truth every cat owner knows. Forcing a cat to do anything it doesn't want to do is, by and large, an exercise in futility. The agents experimented with hunger as their primary motivator. Their reasoning was simple. A starving animal would be far more incentivized to earn a treat for a correctly performed action. The cat was placed on a strict diet, with the expectation that its instinct for survival would eventually overpower its inherent stubbornness. Initially, This strategy seemed to yield some results. The cat did indeed become more compliant, following commands more frequently. However, a significant problem soon arose. The moment the animal received its food, it immediately lost all interest in any further work. Moreover, the constant feeling of hunger made the cat anxious and distracted it just as much as any external stimuli. Instead of obeying instructions, it would begin actively searching for food independently. It quickly became evident that even a basic instinct like hunger could not be reliably transformed into a consistent tool for control. What started as a seemingly swift and clever solution dragged on for years. 5 years. Imagine 5 years and the brightest minds at the CIA, veterinarians, engineers, and animal trainers, toiled relentlessly to turn a cat into a spy. These were years filled with endless trials, frustrating mistakes, and outright failed training sessions. Teams came and went, budgets swelled, yet tangible results remained virtually non-existent. Every small victory, a cat successfully navigating a few meters in the right direction, was quickly overshadowed by a dozen setbacks. The animals would often flee, refuse to cooperate, or, tragically, even perish during complex operations. Project Acoustic Kitty was rapidly devolving into an expensive and utterly hopeless endeavour. For this incredible undertaking, declassified estimates later revealed that between $15 and $20 million were spent. In today's money, that's well over $150 million. A truly colossal sum, comparable to the cost of developing a fighter jet or building a small warship. These funds were poured into developing miniature electronics, performing incredibly complex surgical procedures, covering the salaries of an entire team of specialists, and of course, maintaining the cat agents themselves. The project was, quite literally, becoming a money pit. And all of this for one solitary objective, which with each passing day seemed more and more elusive: to eavesdrop on a conversation between two people on a park bench. Pressure on the team was mounting. They either had to deliver some kind of result or face total defeat. And so, after 5 grueling years of trials, failures and colossal spending, the project team decided they could no longer afford to wait. They selected the most capable, the most proficient cat from their entire cohort. Despite all the challenges, they managed to convince leadership that their agent was ready for its first real combat mission. Perhaps it was a desperate gamble, or maybe they genuinely believed the cat would perform differently in a real-world scenario. Either way, the green light was given. The moment of truth had arrived for Project Acoustic Kitty. All the years of effort, all the millions poured into it, now hinged on the success of this single crucial mission. The stakes were incredibly high. 2 men were selected as the initial targets for the Spy Cat's debut mission. Their identities remain classified to this day, but it was known they were of significant interest to the CIA. Intelligence indicated they were scheduled for a confidential meeting on a park bench in Washington, not far from the Soviet embassy. The location was perfect, an open area where any conventional surveillance would be easily detected. But the CIA believed no one would ever suspect an ordinary cat, casually wandering nearby, of espionage. The plan was straightforward: release the cat nearby and direct it towards the designated bench. All that was left was to hope the animal wouldn't fail them this time. CIA agents had meticulously parked their surveillance van, bristling with high-tech signal reception gear, on a quiet street overlooking the park. Inside, the tension was palpable. The team, who had poured 5 years of their lives into this audacious project, held their breath in anticipation. On the monitors, every detail was crystal clear. There was the designated bench, and then the targets emerged into view. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. They double-checked their sophisticated equipment. The receiver hummed perfectly. The feline operative's internal battery was fully charged. Every agent harboured high hopes for the monumental success of this multi-year, astronomically expensive operation. This was their one chance to prove that the concept of a cyborg cat wasn't a crazy delusion, but a revolutionary breakthrough in the shadowy world of espionage. Now everything hinged on one small, furry agent. The big day finally arrived. A CIA surveillance van was parked near a park. Inside, a team of agents who had spent 5 years and millions of dollars preparing their feline operative held their breath. Their target, 2 men sitting on a park bench. The van's door slid open, and a cyborg cat stepped onto the pavement. Its mission: cross the road and approach the targets. But instead of heading towards its objective, the cat did what cats do. Overwhelmed and startled by the unfamiliar surroundings, it panicked and bolted straight into the busy street. In that very instant, a passing taxi struck it dead. The mission failed before it even began. $20 million and 5 years of work vanished in a matter of seconds, crushed under the wheels of a car. Immediately after this incident, Project Acoustic Kitty was summarily and permanently shut down. A declassified CIA report later stated that despite the scientific success in creating such a device, the program was deemed impractical for real-world operations. Simply put, they admitted it was impossible to make a cat consistently follow orders in a real-life, high-stress situation. Thus ended the story of Project Acoustic Kitty, one of the most expensive and absurd failures in the history of intelligence agencies. It's a stark reminder that in the relentless pursuit of technological advantage, one can easily forget about simple feline nature. Thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this incredible story, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new declassified secrets. And what animal do you think would make the perfect spy? Share your theories in the comments below.